welcome. My name is Sylvia Vallis, and I'm a writer, an international speaker, and a spiritual teacher, and have been doing this service work now for the past 30 plus years. And my whole aim of my what I call soul service mission is to empower people, to help them make the most of their life, to help them on their spiritual path, their spiritual journey, sometimes called soul path, and to help them enjoy life, to live life to the full, and enjoy miracles and the wonderful opportunities that life offers us, which I personally don't just believe is ours by right, but I know that you can do it because that's how I live my life. So this empowerment journey has had different facets as in my development and in what I offer. And I'd like to welcome you to my latest soul service mission or project called which stands for Answers from Universal Mind. And the whole aim of this is to answer your questions, questions that may have puzzled or bothered you for some time, questions of a spiritual or metaphysical nature that apply to everybody, um, questions that help you make sense of life, what it's about, how to handle certain situations, and so forth. In other words, improve the quality of your life. And to also create the space for miracles to occur, which is why I wrote this wee book, The Miracle Effect. It's won 2 awards now, which I'm thrilled with, which gives you a guidebook of how you can actually put a lot of that into practice every day and create the world of your dreams, to make your dreams a reality, as it were. So this project, as I say, is uh, specifically aimed for people who have questions that they would like to ask. So I have been receiving some, thank you, and there have been questions over my, as I say, 30 plus years of teaching that have tended to crop up again and again. So I will include those as well. Now, one of the more recent ones, because there's a lot of talk about it on Facebook and YouTube and so on, is goes along these lines. Are we in the fifth dimension now? And can we access the fifth dimension? So here's my understanding. As I say, it's based on a lot of study, but it's also based on my asking my higher self, my higher mind, these questions, which is connected to the universal mind. Is something we can all do, but as I've mentioned before, not everybody either has the time or um, the inclination to develop that conscious communication, whereas in my work, that's of course essential. So, fifth dimension. Okay, what is it? What does it look like? When you say things like that or read something like that, I have never seen anybody explain what they think it's like in the fifth dimension or what we are going to be like if we were in the fifth dimension. And especially, I have never seen anyone say, well, this is what you've got to do to be able to move into the fifth dimension. And to me, that's absolutely crucial. So, okay, let's have a look at it. And I'll give you my understandings. The third dimension is where we are. We do go in and out of, also, of course, the fourth dimension. The third dimension is length, width, and breadth. The fourth dimension basically adds time to that mix. So, what's the fifth? Well, we don't know. We can only speculate what the fifth dimension is. So, I'd like to use the very popular but very appropriate analogy of the butterfly. When we started our life experiences, our journeyings in body form on this planet, we were like the caterpillar. All we did was survive, just like the caterpillar that spends its whole life just eating and growing. We too have spent lifetimes at the beginning where we have just learned to live in this third dimension, in this physical body. We ate, we slept, we procreated, and we survived. That was about it. Then, of course, just like the caterpillar, it goes into a period of transformation. It turns within. And we too have gone into or are in a period of transformation. In other words, where we start changing from the inside out. For humans, we realize that there's more to life than just eat, sleep, drink, and so on. We want to know the meaning of life. We want to know, why am I here? What is it all about? And so we're beginning this process of transformation from within. Now, often we don't get the answers that are going to help us, maybe for several lifetimes. But that's okay. The transformation has started. And eventually, we have transformed enough, and I'll explain what I think this means in human terms, to move into the last stage where we fly free as the butterfly does. We can experience life in this world to the full because as humans, we have that understanding. Some paths call it enlightenment, awareness. Some people call it ascension. It has many names, but basically what we're doing is ascending our understanding and our vibrational frequency into a higher realm, which we speculate is going to be the fifth dimension. Now, until we've done that transformation, we can't be in the fifth dimension, can we? We are still stuck here in this physical form. And just like a butterfly would have no knowledge of what the world is like and the freedom it experiences as a butterfly when it was in its caterpillar or its cocoon state, we have really no absolute knowledge or idea of what the fifth dimension is. We can only speculate. And of course, we can refer to some of the ancient wisdom teachings which do talk about this. They may not call it the fifth dimension because in past times that terminology wasn't used, wasn't known. But nevertheless, transformation definitely is part of the ancient teachings. And we know that those masters who have gone before us have achieved that. We call them ascended masters because they have ascended out of and beyond the third and the fourth dimension. So, what does it mean for us? Well, in my understanding, we have to understand what life's about, complete what work we've come to do. They're based, in my understanding, of certain universal principles that apply to us all, a bit like a school curriculum, if you call the Earth a school of learning and advancement, and also complete our karma and so on before we too, after physical death, can then ascend into a higher frequency form. And that form is usually known or termed the light body because it's not of this physical flesh and bone. And if we decided to come back in that form, it wouldn't necessarily have to be in this physical dense form. But it's really an ascension of consciousness. And until we've reached that very high level of consciousness, of awareness, uh, obviously we're not in the fifth dimension because we wouldn't be living here as we are in a physical form, needing to eat and drink to survive and all those things. That's third dimensional. A fifth dimensional experience, shall we call it, wouldn't require food and drink and all of that to survive because it would be in a much finer um, light body, is the nearest we can call it, form, which is beyond the need for the physical sustenance and so on. So, no, definitely we're not in the fifth dimension. And I have understood too that if we were in the fifth dimension and we decided to come here into it, we could project a physical form, but we wouldn't be bound by the third dimension. As I say, we wouldn't need to eat and drink and so on to survive. We wouldn't need doors because we'd simply pass through walls and things like that. Um, I believe it has been done by some enlightened ascended masters in the past. They appear and disappear just in a flash and so on. That means that they have achieved that level of frequency that they can do that. And so the other part of the question, can we access the fifth dimensional consciousness and awareness? Well, again, it doesn't seem possible, because if we're still bound by our third dimensional mind and awareness and that level, how can we tap into something which is so far beyond us that it's inaccessible? So my understanding and the answer to that question is, um, we are all working towards this transcended state, shall we say, this transformed state at some point or other. And no, I don't think, in fact, I'm almost sure that this ascension into the fifth dimensional light body is going to happen while we're here in the third dimension. If you look at all the masters who've gone before, they have all achieved their levels of enlightenment in their physical bodies, and then they transition like everybody else, and then they can come back and teach or whatever and serve in their light body. So um, there's little evidence to suggest that this ascension, this transformation process is going to happen while we're still living in this 3D body. After all, we're in the 3D body for a reason, karmically, and for the things we have still to work on. So it wouldn't make sense anyway. So again, to access a consciousness that's so far beyond us at the moment that we really can't define anyway, I personally cannot see that that is possible. However, what I'm sharing through this series is we can tap into our higher mind, which is of this higher frequency, you could say fifth dimensional frequency, and at times learn to receive revelations, inspiration, and understandings, and so on, once we've developed that skill. So, in that sense, yes, you can get answers from the higher frequency. So, but it's not like you're in and out of that consciousness all the time. There has to be a particular reason that you would want to move into that frequency, and you have to be, um, shall we say, trained, to use our 3D terms, to be able to transcend in consciousness this third dimensional awareness so that we can tap into our higher mind. So I hope that gives you something to think about, and always use your own discernment and check it out yourself. But to blithely say, as some folk do, very well-meaning folk saying, "Oh yes, I'm in the fifth dimension and I'm working from that level of consciousness." Don't think that can be possible, and it's simply because we don't understand it. We can't actually know for sure, and we can, maybe they hope that that's the case, but there is nothing to support that at all, evidentially. So anyway, that's my understanding. I hope that gives given you, as I say, something to think about, and tune in yourself. As I say, everyone can do it, and transcend just the 3D limitations. So if you'd like to send in your question or questions, they're not meant to be of a very personal nature, of course, um, relationships and things like that. They're questions that apply to everybody. I do personal questions and so on in private consultations, but this is not meant for that. Please do send your questions in. Here's my email address, sjv3@extra.co.nz. Please note there's no E in the extra. Or you can go straight to my website, which is simply www.sylviavalas.com, where there will be a contact section there, and it will also explain a little about my book, and also it will have these questions, videos, and in written form later in a section on that website. So do join me again at some time, And I leave you now with many blessings and many miracles. Enjoy life.